the main thing here that I am trying to do is to spark some ideas and have a conversation, because for me, growing an agile mindset or growing a mindset is more about conversation, dialogue, than presentation. Let's start with this question. Just think of a time when you learned a new skill, overcame a challenge, or embarked on a new journey. If you look back and just reflect back on this journey, what helped you to just keep going? What are some of the things that helped you just say, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to keep going. Give it maybe 20 seconds to find that event or find that point in. This is probably not a new idea for us here. I first learned about this idea of mindset. Obviously, there is a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and maybe some of you here know that work. There's also the work of a friend and a former colleague, and name is Ahmed Safki, who actually introduced me to this idea of an agile mindset, years ago. And ever since, this idea of mindset has been just percolating in my mind for a long time. And initially I'm like, okay, mindset by itself is not enough. You probably heard of like the being agile, the doing agile, and some sort of in between, the balance, the values and the practices. But if we bring it back to the definition, like what is a mindset? And I honestly can't remember where I got this definition, if I just created this or just it was a merge of different things that I read and I put this together. But the main thing is that this here is a combination. A mindset is a combination of attitudes and behaviors. It's an established set of attitudes and behaviors, right? So you may have already mentioned when you thought of this time that you have an attitude of I can do this, right? And then at some point you translated that into some behavior, and you got support from others as well, but you had that attitude that you can do it, and that kind of helped you to keep going, right? So this is the definition of kind of like a very short definition about the mindset. What is a mindset? It's attitudes, behaviors, about how we accomplish work. What if I were to turn this into a formula or an equation, right? So I just decided that I'm gonna formulate this: mindset equal attitudes plus behaviors, right? So it's the sum of attitudes and behaviors that makes sort of our mindset. But I want to go through this and try to find or to prove that our attitude will affect our behavior, and the attitude and behavior together will impact our mindset or affect our mindset, the way that we think about accomplishing work or the way that we think about anything, right? So what attitudes and behaviors do you notice at work? Like if you were to think about, from this standpoint, you go to work on a daily basis, or you show up and on Zoom or conferences, and you notice some attitudes and behaviors, and it could be good attitudes and behaviors. It could be something that you think, okay, this is not really the way that we're gonna be able to change things. The attitude could be, we could say something or like, okay, we don't want to meet in real time or live. We can do things asynchronously. So the behavior is using Slack, or maybe there is an overuse of Slack or messaging. All right, cool. So again, the idea here, again, we back to this equation or formula here. You know the types of mindset. There's the fixed mindset, there's a growth mindset. So an example of an attitude, just a personal attitude, I can't get up early, right? So I can tell myself I can't get up early, and now the behavior is I'm gonna go to bed late. I'm just, I kind of like I reinforcing this attitude that I can get up early, so I might as well just, binge watch whatever I want on Netflix or whatever streaming service you want, and because I can't get up early anyway. So why go to bed early? So that's sort of like an example. Another thing is a growth mindset is, okay, I can get up early, I can do this, right? So that attitude can impact your behavior. So I'm gonna try to, my behavior is gonna be, okay, I'm gonna be in bed by 9 p.m. and that will be the way that will help me get up early, right? Um, so how does this translate to maybe something that we do at work? You can see the fixed mindset. Um, we need to know it all before we start, right? So this is the attitude that we come at something, a new project, for example. We need to know everything up front. So the behavior, we need to, have upfront requirements. We're going to gather requirements. We're going to, need to know everything before we get started. So we're going to write the requirements, spend the next 3 to 6 months writing requirements. And so that's the behavior. So it's sort of like this attitude and behavior drive that mindset, which in this case is a fixed mindset, right? In the growth mindset, our attitude, we're going to learn as we go. We can't possibly know everything up front. So we're going to learn as we go. So the behavior here is we're going to break things into small batches. Maybe we're going to work, take a little bit of this, work on it, learn, and then, rinse and repeat, right? So the growth mindset, fixed mindset versus growth mindset, uh, this idea again, this is a research by Carol Dweck, who I highly recommend to check out her work. So if you haven't read that book, it's a very small book. It's not a large book. It's a small read, very short, and you could read it in an afternoon. But the idea is that there are two types of mindset. There's the fixed mindset, there's the growth mindset. And people in a fixed mindset, they believe you're either good at something or you're not, right? So that's based on your inherent nature, right? So it's almost like you're thinking of height, right? Once you reach a certain height, you can no longer get taller, right? The people in the growth mindset, they believe that they can be good at anything, because they, based on their ability and actions, right? So it's like going to the gym, right? The more you exercise, the more you get muscles, right? It's muscles, they grow when you exercise. So that's sort of like the difference, the fixed versus growth mindset. So in fact, you probably, if you have children in elementary school, or they some schools have been applying some of the work of mindset, fixed versus growth mindset in education, which probably where it was introduced. And now as we look at the parallels between fixed and growth mindset, you can probably start to see how aligned this with the agile attitudes or agile values and principles. So let's take a look at some of these statements, and if you were to think about these attitudes, which one do you think it supports? And so we've always done it this way. Fixed, right? Yeah. So we've always done it this way. So we're not going to change. We're not going to take any action. Right. We want to learn new ways of working. Growth. That's not my job. Fixed, right? What kind of attitude does that support? Fixed or growth? Fixed, right? Yeah. Multitasking is how we get things done, right? So that's how, what attitude does that support? Is it fixed or growth? And then focus is a big value for us. That's probably, if you have that sort of attitude, what mindset does it support? The agile mindset and the growth is aligned with the growth mindset, right? So focusing on something will help us, get things done, learn, and improve. Let's do this a quick introspection. This is, so first we talked about like some of the things, the attitudes and the behaviors that you notice at work, or you notice. And now think about, where do you have a fixed mindset and what's the impact? Like, so this is based, just internally focused. Where do you have a fixed mindset and what's the impact? So it's not with a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, because in a fixed mindset means that as a person, I could have a fixed mindset in some areas and a growth mindset in other areas, right? It's not like I only have fixed mindset or I only have growth mindset. So even though as coaches, we're a lot of the coaches I talk to and Scrum Masters, we're always focused on learning, growing, finding out the next practice to help our teams get better. But sometimes that put us in that fixed mindset that, okay, if we want to get better, then the teams that we're supporting want to get better, right? And that could cause this sort of relationships to suffer. I want to just point out something, and that's the purpose of this sort of exercise or looking at this, because it's it's easier to notice fixed mindset in others than noticing it in ourselves, right? So you probably can point out to the developers, or I'm sure you're able to frame it in a way that help them see it, but sometimes it's hard to help others see what we see, especially if they're not willing. So it helps to the point earlier about like the blind spots. It helps to have someone else point out some of the fixed mindset that we have, because it's harder for us to realize it or recognize it. There's a lot of things that we can start to think about when we think about the mindset, not just being aware of the fixed and growth mindset, but what's causing the fixed and growth mindset. What's leading us to that mindset. That's agile is a mindset. Agile is a growth mindset, and a lot of us are familiar with this sentence, which is the first sentence in the manifesto. We're uncovering better ways, of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. So agile is a growth mindset. And what are some of the agile attitudes or what we call values, right? The agile values. So it's individuals and interactions, customer collaboration, working software, responding to change. So these are attitudes, or as the agile we call them values. And there are other set of values or attitudes where we focus on the opposite of that, or the process tools and the contract negotiation, documentation, following a plan. So you can see, depending on which attitude or value you are going to be honoring, the behavior will be impacted by that attitude, right? So in other words, if I were to kind of rewrite some of the values or attitudes from the Agile Manifesto, it would be like something like this. We value relationships, we value collaboration, we value delivering business, making an impact, we value being resilient. So sort of like these are the things that we value. These are the attitudes that we show, we want to embark or invite people to. And then from there, that behavior will be follow. And I'm not saying like it has to start from the attitudes and then the behavior. There's some sort of like combination of the attitudes and behaviors together. So more agile attitudes or principles, you can look at the 12 principles. Let's talk about this last question here, and then I'll basically share like some from my experience. I call them the seeds to growing an agile mindset. I'm not telling you this is what works. These are just like seeds that you can start to plant in your organization or with your team, or combination of them or all of them or some of them. And then that might start to you might start to see like a growing that agile mindset. How might you grow an agile mindset? Like if you were to follow some of the things that we've talked about today, or something that's an idea that got sparked based on this conversation, or some ideas that you came with, how might you grow an agile mindset? What would be some of the, if you were to start with one thing, what would that be? Here are some of the seeds for growing an agile mindset. Just things that I have tried and some of them worked, some of them didn't. And it's all about, the growth mindset is about experimentation. The agile mindset, we know about experimentation. So building relationships, and some tools or techniques that I use for building a relationship is having sort of like lean coffee. People have sort of participatory, they are building the topics that they want to discuss together. So that helps, them feel, build that relationship. Another one is creating a safe environment, right? Psychological safety. You may want to check the work of Amy Edmondson at Harvard. She does a lot of work on psychological safety and giving people a voice, right? So if they're not willing to speak or they're not really ready to speak, you want to invite them and have sort of create this sort of psychological safety. Another one is asking for help. I see that a lot. People are not willing to ask for help. They feel that there's a pressure that if they ask for help, they will look incompetent, or they don't want to delegate to others, which add more work on them, which doesn't leave room for growth or learning anything. Establishing connections. The one of the best way I know how is to play games, some sort of simulations or games, whether it's online or in person. Sharing the knowledge, hosting brown bag sessions or lunch and learn. And here asking open-ended questions, encouraging learning. It's definitely not designed to be like everything that I've tried or everything that you could try, but it's just things that I focus on, and try often. This is probably one of the most ones that I try. This one here as well. This one. All right, so let's go ahead. Like, as we discuss the values, we also have the behaviors. So I don't know if you notice when I put this formula here, or at least just put mindset, behaviors, and attitudes. I put something in the slide that talks about the thoughts and the yeah, here. So attitudes can be thoughts that can be spoken or unspoken, right? So we can think things and act based on, what we're thinking, or we can say things and then obviously we act upon them, action. So if we go to the agile practices here, we will see that, these behaviors are practices that supports the attitudes of, okay, we want to have transparency, we value visibility, or we value collaboration. So maybe we need to have a visual board, we have a Kanban board, maybe we need to have feedback. So we got iterations, we got planning, stories, and there are a lot of practices out there. I'm sure there's hundreds of agile practices that we can take on, but what are the things that we value, and then from those values we can start to implement or experiment with some practices that can help us see what we don't see, or raise our level of awareness so that we can get better and improve. So at the end, the mindset is behaviors and attitudes. The agile mindset, we talked about values, principles, and practices. We talked about some of the seeds. But here is a couple of reference. Obviously, this is the one book I recommend, that kind of shaped my thinking, as well as the work of Ahmed Sidki on the agile mindset.